Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest in the Asian Downstream Summit and Asian Refining Technology Team's digital series. Today, we are absolutely delighted to be joined by the CEO and co-founder of Ingenera himself, Dr. Pratap Nair. In his exclusive interview, Dr. Nair shares insights on how to drive digitalization as a business enabler, how to empower your workforce for the oncoming digital era, and his key tips for business success in the next normal. Pratap is here to answer your questions later in our exciting live Q&A session, so please do send through everything you've ever wanted to ask him and Ingenera. We look forward to hearing from you. On that subject, as you know, we love getting your feedback and insights on the market. So as ever, we have a couple of polls to find out how digital and new technologies are driving your business and its ROI. The first one is coming up now, so please do take a moment to vote. We'd love to hear from you. We want to know, is the digitally driven distributed workforce a part of your organization's post-COVID-19 future? As well as being a mouthful, it's been a pretty integral part of the last 6 months and looks like it may well be here to stay for the time being. So we want to know, is it a key part of your organization's post-COVID-19 future? And we'll be talking a little bit later about how new technologies and innovation can help you manage that. So please do cast your votes, yes, no, or perhaps you're still not sure, perhaps you're still in planning stages. We'd love to hear your thoughts, we'd love to hear your votes. A few more seconds to vote. Ladies and gentlemen, please do send them in. We're looking forward to sharing the results with you. Thank you very much for sending in your votes. Some really interesting results, and a whopping 80% of you do believe that the digitally driven distributed workforce is going to be a major part of your organization's post-COVID-19 future. So it looks like, according to you, agile working looks like it may be here to stay. The interesting question is what strategies and what solutions are going to be helping you and your workforce deal with that? 15% are still undecided. They're not sure, still planning recovery. And in these uncertain times, that does make sense. And only 5% of you believe that a digitally driven distributed workforce is not going to be part of your organization's post-COVID-19 future. Maybe Pratap's interview will change your mind. On that subject, we've loved hearing from you. And now it's time to hear from Pratap. We do hope you enjoy the interview and do stay tuned for the live Q&A session straight after this. Today, it is a great pleasure to be sharing insights with you from Dr. Pratap Nair. He's the CEO and President of Ingenera. Thank you very much for joining us today, Pratap.
Thank you, Amanda. Good to be
and
here.
Pratap, first of all, could you please tell us what is your main advice for business leaders in the refining and petrochemical industry to navigate this current climate?
First, let's take a look at what are the challenges that this industry is facing right now with the given climate. I'll kind of answer that in the process manufacturing space that really covers refining and petrochemicals. The main challenges that are being faced today are one, the demand has really taken a dip. And as a result, there's a cascading effect back to a lot of these petrochemical and refining plants, where the capacity utilization has gone down tremendously. A lot of uncertainty on the supply of raw materials, given the situation, and of course, as a result, cost pressures that have to be taken care of and addressed. And the other overriding kind of challenge that was really never expected was availability of the workforce. And so these are all kind of the challenges that kind of emerged from the situation. Now, fortunately, one of the things people have been talking about digitalization, um, can assuage a lot of these challenges. However, now what the leadership needs to do is really be able to adopt such concepts and adapt to the situation, to be able to quickly adapt and to take care of these challenges. The bottleneck with these technologies and concepts have never really been the technology. It's always been people. And so today, I mean, there's a driving force because of these challenges. For it's even more important for the leadership to really, take this over and move forward to try and address these challenges. So the need is now, and so it has to be, taken care of.
And you mentioned digitalization. What will be the role of digitalization in helping operators recover post COVID-19?
Yeah, COVID-19, I mean, frankly, it's taken all of us by surprise, right? In the industry, it wasn't really not expected. So, I mean, now it's time to improvise and see how we can handle these situations. And this is not something like that's going to vanish overnight. It's going to be here, and it's going to take some time. And the really challenging thing is there could be repeats of this. You never know. I mean, so we're truly having to settle into a new normal. And digitalization does help in a lot of ways in this. Some of the challenges I mentioned before. Uh, the digitalization allows more closer to real time availability of decision making information if it is done properly. So you're able to respond faster to changes. So you're able to more quickly replan and react to changes, like you suddenly see that, hey, I'm not going to get my raw material as I expected, or my demand is not quite where I expected and I have to really cut back on my production, or vice versa. So to be able to quickly react, you cannot go through the paradigm of, hey, waiting till the end of the month or end of a fortnight to see, oh, whoops, now let's see what we can do. The other very important thing is, I was mentioning the workforce is a challenge. Fortunately, if you have a very digitalized environment with connectivity, Internet of Things, and so on, it's really Internet of People the way I look at it. You no longer need the experts to be where the information or the data is generated. The data can today go to the experts. They can be sitting anywhere in the world. And so, in effect, you have a larger availability of expertise. They don't all have to be where the manufacturing is happening. And so that's great because the advantages to that availability, you can tap into more efficient ways of doing it in terms of cost and so on. And so the uncertainty with availability of the workforce is tremendously reduced. So these are some of the things that digitalization really helps address, which are key challenges that this industry is facing and will continue to face in this whole new normal.
And what role does Ingenero play in this digitalization and in this road to recovery?
Ingenero has, as a company, the last 2 decades, we've been, what we've really been doing for the process manufacturing industry is we've been connected to these manufacturing plants. We've been taking data, doing deep analytics of this data, and providing timely feedback, whether it's for safety, efficiency, environmental, name it, or production. So that's something that's been happening. We've been using ML techniques, AI techniques, which are now in vogue and people are talking about it, as well as fundamental principles. Now, when people talk of digitalization, oftentimes the initial thought was, hey, a lot of data is available in this industry through the digitization program, not digitalization, but digitization program that happened, in the 90s. So we've got all kinds of digital data available. It's collected at a rapid pace. The data is growing, but today the paradigm is maybe 90% of that data is just archived. No one even looks at it. But with the techniques like big data, the ability to use some of these technologies, which is part of digitalization, we're able to take and make use of that data and extract insights that are hidden as gems, which otherwise would never have been seen. So by virtue of our, having done this analytics over the last 2 decades, of in the last maybe 4 or 5 years, we've been called upon by a lot of our client companies to help them with the digitalization program, actually automate a lot of this and provide solutions that can actually directly be sitting there and doing things automatically, the analytics and providing the information. It's not just the raw data that you're providing or in pretty looking dashboards, but take the data. 20% to 30% of that data is typically in error in our industry. Figuring out what is correct, weeding out the bad data, and then making sense of it, doing predictive analytics and so on, and providing that. So that's a very important piece of digitalization, and we very nicely fit into that area and become a very important piece of that whole digitalization puzzle, if you will. Domain expertise is a big important thing in being able to pull all this together in any given industry. And so we've got a whole process which we call decision excellence engineering process, which makes this happen. And we have a solution called intelligent software solution for the process decision excellence for the industry. So these are the ways we are really contributing in this area to this industry.
Thank you very much. And as you mentioned, it's a time of great change for the industry. And during such an uncertain climate, why do you believe that it is important for operators to invest in the right solutions provider?
Very good question. Yes, that is increasingly becoming important because with the changes like we were talking about, cost is really becoming much more important. It was always important, but even more so. For there have been approaches, particularly with solutions, or even if you take digitalization, for people to expect, okay, this is the big thing that you can do, and take that leap of faith, and hopefully things will work. So you just broad brush the whole thing across every business process. Perhaps there's a better way of doing it, and we've always advocated that, even before these challenging times, but it's become more important these days, is that one size doesn't fit all. Digitalization may not necessarily help in every area. So people who are operating facilities or running businesses, they know these are our challenging areas. You can actually work backwards and say, okay, if I do this, can this solve the problem of mine? Can it help add value to me? You can do a little bit of pre-thinking there, and then see how these tools and technologies can be pulled together and used in the form of a solution to directly address that problem. So vendors or solution providers who can do that, I think that would be very important for people who are going in looking for solution providers to make sure that happens. So at the end of the day, I mean, you have tools, technology tools. I mean, tools are like atoms, but a solution is like the molecule. So you need to be able to make sure that you're converting those tools and atoms to molecule to something you can directly use to get value immediately or very quickly after you implemented solutions.
And finally, what is yours and Engineera's main business aim for the future?
of course, the immediate aim is to continue to seamlessly deliver services and solutions to our customers, and which we've done. I mean, there were challenges when we first suddenly got into the lockdown situation. There was a transition from work from office to work from home, and fortunately, our business, a lot of it is amenable to such work from home situation. But still, considering, continuing to provide the same level of security with the data, the confidentiality, there have been, protocols we had to put in place, and the transition. We quickly made the transition, but it was an effort, and so that was something. So we continue to, strive to do that. We would like to provide a continuous learning and growth environment for our workforce. We continue to do that. Rapidly adapt and adopt. That's really the mantra for us. And in the longer term, I mean, we've always been providing value-added engineering and operations as a support center, with a distributed workforce as far as the client is concerned, with analytics and so on. We'll be continuing to do that, but in a much more automated way. Is kind of the direction we'll be taking more and more so going forward.
Thank you very much, Pratap. We look forward to seeing you at the event.
Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you very much for sharing your insights, Pratap, and thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you to all of you for sharing in your questions and sharing your insights. Please do take a chance to continue to send in whatever you'd like to ask Pratap and Ingenero. The question and answer session is still open, and anything at all that we don't get the chance to ask Pratap today in the live session, we will be gathering his feedback later on after the session and sending it to you in an email over the next couple of weeks. So do keep a look in your inbox for that. But Pratap, thank you very much again for that interview. And one thing that we thought was really interesting is you immediately touched on the shifts in supply and demand that the current climate is going to bring about. And one of our audience members wants to know, how do you suggest that operators adapt their business models to these changing and particularly dip in fuel demand that has come as a result of the current climate and the cost pressures that you mentioned?
Yeah, and that's as I was saying, that's where the digitalization helps, and there's a transformation, business transformation that has to take place. Traditionally, people are more used to having more steady conditions and so on. So the whole planning cycles and the response to the information that they get could have longer lead times. And today, that may not be the case, as there'll be a lot more fluctuations going forward, and we've seen that there's a sharp drop. So being able to respond faster, in other words, getting the information on which you can decide, not just raw data, but information on which you can decide a lot faster. Having said that, with the tools and techniques that could happen, but then you also have to, in parallel, change your business processes to adjust to that. And then that, is fairly key to make that happen, to tap into what is available through a digitalization transformation program.
Absolutely. And you spoke about the importance of digitalization, but also making sure that your work processes and operations are aligned with that innovation. And you also mentioned the availability of the workforce as an unexpected challenge of the current climate. And first of all, why do you think that this was so unexpected, and how can new technologies help address this challenge and the process operations that you mentioned?
Yes, the workforce. I mean, this is something that certainly the whole pandemic has kind of that whole problem raised its head over there. Certainly, over time, there's in certain geographies there have been certain expertise levels have been shifting and changing, but here that's not the case. I mean, it's a sudden availability of workforce on site has become more and more of a challenge. But that should not be a challenge, with the connected environment that we have. So, like I was saying earlier, it doesn't really matter where your workforce is based. You could have the information really made available to people sitting anywhere, and so you could have certain experts sitting hundreds of miles away, having access and all collaborating with people around, just like we're doing now. I mean, we can actually see each other and so on, right? So likewise with the data and this thing. So that's the true distributed workforce, which is made possible through the whole connected environment, which is really part of the whole digitalization concept.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And you spoke about the virtual workforce, and this is something that we touched on as well in one of our earlier polls. And you really seem to have piqued a wave of interest here from our audience, because one of them would like to know, how do you ensure that your engineers working from home are able to access the software which is located in servers?
Yes, that is a it's a challenge. We went through that. Fortunately, we have been in this business providing remote support to our clients. So within a week, we were able to quickly go from work from office to work from home for our entire workforce. But yes, being able to have the links set up, and in our case, we really almost had to duplicate some amount of hardware because we also have to maintain tight security controls and so on. So yes, I mean that does require some level of knowledge in how you do that, but it is possible. I mean, a lot of people are doing that. We have certainly done that, and it seems to be fairly streamlined and working. So yes, there's a lot of software, the whole virtualization concepts and so on. All that really helps in making this work. But I can get into more detail and nitty gritty, offline with whoever is interested.
Thank you. And as we said, Pratap's feedback will be coming to you in your inbox over the next couple of weeks as well. And we're speaking about the workforce, and obviously a key part of any operator's workforce is health and safety and HSE process. So somebody would like to know, can digitalization help in engineering and safety review activities, and how?
Certainly, it does play a role. Again, one, a lot of certainly there are some of the safety reviews, some part of it has to be on site, but there's a lot of reviews, like relief valve analysis, periodic reviews that require a fair amount of analysis and thinking through what the mitigations can be and so on. Those are again things ideally suited for distributed environments. So you could have teams sitting anywhere, kind of doing that kind of work, collaborating, of course, with on-site people, which has an impact on safety. Likewise, environment monitoring is another part. While you do have control rooms locally, some of these things can be monitored off-site. Again, this is where the whole distributed and collaborative environment does help. So we have seen in our experience, we've been doing this kind of distributed remote kind of support work, and it does greatly improve and support and help with the safety, environmental emissions and performance in that area.
And you've spoken a lot, and I think we all agree on the importance of digitalization in the next normal of the industry, and the fact that we are entering very much a hyper-connected market. And we just wanted to know a little bit about how you would manage innovation strategies and how your solutions would help operators in particular address the pace of their innovation.
Yes, and this is something actually we've been, this is our business, and we've been doing this with several of our clients. Like I said earlier, it's not, one is, yes, making, if you have real-time solutions and things like that, making it work in a stable manner and robustly is one part of it. Second is also, transitioning that and having that working with the users, whether it's operators, engineers. There is a period where, again, it's really, you're talking of a paradigm shift in way people are thinking, because once this kind of information is made available, that's not what people have been used to. So kind of working along and showing how this can be really utilized instead of using the same old work processes, even though you have much better information and much more timely information and much higher quality information that is possible. So that is something that has to go hand in hand, and so that's really a process, and this is kind of what some of the things to mention to you, how these innovations can be really implemented. So there's a people side to the equation, and then of course there's the technology, and how do you utilize and pull all that together.
Absolutely, and as you say, there's a really big people side to technology, and a big part of that people side is senior management and leadership. So how do you think that you can empower and persuade leadership in the business to adopt the digitalization concepts you mentioned and come on board with new technologies and innovation?
Yes, this actually, yes. I mean, one is the leadership side, and that we work with companies where the whole idea, like I was saying earlier, is instead of really going, it's not about force fitting a technology. There are a lot of technologies available. It's about how these technologies can really address issues that maybe a company is having, or show an area where by implementing technology solutions, you can actually have better revenue streams or better costs, better efficiencies, or so on. So understanding that with any customer or client that we work with has been very important. And once that is kind of understood, and it's really a process where we work with our customers. Then once leadership sees that, it's a lot easier for them to really even take that jump rather than it always being a leap of faith. So that has been key. The second is, of course, at the end of the day, it has to be implemented and people have to utilize it. So there's also a grounds up kind of education or bringing people on board that is equally important.
Definitely. And I think another angle of the relationship between workforce and technology is obviously outsourcing. And somebody in our audience would like to know which department in a refinery can be outsourced to start with. Which is the first refinery department to be outsourced, in your opinion?
Actually, more than I would not view this as purely outsourcing. It's really collaboration. What this whole the solutions coming from digitalization, what it really provides is augmented intelligence. So you can have existing workforce, different departments, through these solutions. If they get augmented intelligence, uh, they can work a lot more efficiently and effectively. So it's not just taking that entire function and throwing it out to outsource it to someone. So it's really what then happens is if they can work more efficiently, uh, that workforce, there could be slimming of people in one area and shifting to another area where it's more required.
Yes.
And so it's really a collaboration more than a strict outsourcing that we normally kind of propagate and uh, you know, try to promote with.
Absolutely. Absolutely, and I like that. It's not a strict outsourcing; it's a collaboration and a shifting. And I think that's an optimistic way, an optimistic answer, an optimistic way to look at it, which we like. And on that optimistic note, the next question from our audience is: what is the nature of the projects that have increased during this pandemic, especially for your organization?
Certainly, there have been more requests coming in for these type of solutions to be able to foster. How can people, without everyone being on site doing what they have been always doing? So how do you facilitate that? How do you increase information flow between sites? With some of the people who already done that, a key challenge has always been, hey, I'm getting a lot of data and information, but is it still not helping me? So that, like I was saying, the augmented intelligence, people are increasingly realizing that that is a very important piece. And to do that, there are certain technologies, advanced analytics and things like that that have to be utilized to ensure the stability and the quality of the information that you're getting. So there have been a lot more requests in that area for us as a company, and earlier, yeah. So it's not just pure engineering. It's there has been a shift to an interest to people wanting to do some of these things.
Definitely. Thank you. And I think you highlighted there, and can I just say, it's one of the things that I really enjoyed about our conversation, our interview, and definitely this session as well. It's really come across the relationship between people and technology, and the fact that it's not just innovation and digital solutions, but it's really empowering your workforce to be able to work alongside those and navigate them. And on that subject, you've motivated one of our audience members to ask, how do you train operators and your workforce to use big data analytics in their daily activities? And is there a real issue for them in terms of motivation, do you find?
And it's a very good question, because that's a very important part of ultimately making all this work and getting, at the end of the day, you're doing all this to get results, improve the performance or improve what you're doing, facilitating. Likewise, whether it's the operator or the engineer, there's always resistance to change. There's inertia. So when there's a new way of doing this and new solution that comes, it's not always readily, people going rah, rah, rah. But yes, there are places where when we've done this kind of applications and solutions, we've had to work along with not just one or two point team members, but while they lead, spearhead it, we have to work with larger teams, at least getting them involved right in the beginning as to what exactly is going to come their way. Having said that, even once it's implemented, it's important. That's why I was saying the stability and what that is very important to in that whole solution to provide. and the information, the quality of information that is coming. So once we get there, then, even if the people have been involved, we've found that yes, there is a separate training program that is required for for a few weeks, so the operators get used to okay, this is what it's getting, what they're getting from there, and how they can really utilize it. And once they find that it's making their life easier, their job easier, they adopt it.
Yes.
And I'll give you an example. There's one application we have where they're automatically, the information that the operator gets is, this is where I'm operating. Look at my history for the last several years, and immediately it comes up and says that, hey, you have operated in a much better way sometime before, and this is how you operated. And and this is something, it's there ready, in front of them, and they can immediately take action on that. This is something that operators anyway are expected to do, but this whole process of getting and understanding that has traditionally not been that easy, because they go do a lot of searching, making sure it's apples to apples, they're comparing. All that is done for them automatically. Now, it reduces a whole lot of grudge work for them. Obviously, they'd love this, right? So that's the kind of things I'm talking about, which makes the difference.
Definitely, definitely. And as you say, it's difficult to say no to something that makes your job easier. And I think on that subject, and going back to what we talked about initially, about the big shifts in supply and demand, we have a question from our audience. Do these digitalization techniques that you mentioned, how do they help specifically in supply chain management?
Just like, I mean, of course, a lot of what I was talking was maybe related to manufacturing. Of course, the same thing definitely holds true in the supply chain, and we've actually done some applications there. Two parts to it. One is, again, getting much more timely information on what is happening, whether it's the supply of raw materials or even the final logistics distribution, because managing the inventory and things like that. So getting some of those things in closer to real time is one part. Second part is, again, that's where models and analytics comes in handy, because it's too much for the unaided human mind to kind of get their arms around. A lot of data. So, okay, we've got all this, we understand this. Now, what's the best action for us to take? So having help with that, so having a model crunch some of those things and provide, hey, these are, maybe a couple of things, options you have. So they're able to, make a faster decision on that. So this is equally applicable and maybe very important in the supply chain in that regard. Yes.
Definitely. And I think, as you pertinently mentioned, it's about digitalization and managing digitalization with the resources that you and your business have on hand. And I think it goes without saying, as with any industry, oil and gas operators, they come in different sizes, they come with different scale of resources. And one of our audience members wants to ask, what digitalization potential do you see for small scale industries?
Well, it works for all sizes of industries. I mean, the type of things we are addressing is whether you're small or big, is being able to react faster, having the right information to be able to take a decision, which goes across all sizes of businesses. Now, the smaller, manufacturers, for example, may not have the level of digitized information or data already available a lot of the times. So there again, like I was saying earlier, digitalization and digitization is not about going and getting it done across the board. Particularly, and it may be much more relevant and critical for the smaller manufacturers. There, like I said, you work backwards. You identify these are my problem areas. These are areas where it could really help me if I get something closer to real time in terms of information. This is the type of information. So if you understand those areas and then work backwards and say, okay, we just digitalize these work processes in this areas, it's a lot more efficient, and you get your results, you're ensured of results by going through a process like this. So that may be a little bit where much more important, if you will, for smaller manufacturers and or with manufacturers who may not really have a completely digitized environment.
Mm-hmm. And going on from that, some manufacturers may also have data in digital format, which would be the roadmap for them to achieve digitalization. And for those MFRs who do not have data in that digital format, what will be their roadmap? What would you suggest?
Is it the same thing we were talking about? Is the roadmap would really not, instead of going and looking for technologies, it's look inside, look at where you can look, and you can work with people who've gone through this, consultants or whoever. You can together analyze and look at, these are the areas where I really need to, I could potentially improve what I'm doing. Then go back to the technology. Which technologies can I really utilize to do this for me? And so going that way would really be the roadmap. So look inside, then go, instead of, hey, this is a neat technology. It does all these great things. How do I force fit into my organization, and then keep your fingers crossed and hope for the best. It's this way you're kind of sure, and your spending is also much more efficient doing that.
Absolutely. It's about planning a clear roadmap, as you say, and being sure. And one way that we certainly find the market is turning to new technologies to achieve that level of surety is artificial intelligence. So our final question from the audience, somebody would like to know about that. Are you using AI and AI platforms in your services? And if so, in which areas? And I'd like to add to that, do you think that AI is the future of the industry?
Yes, I mean it's AI has been really pushed a lot, and there's a lot of people who are maybe selling it beyond what it is. Yes, certainly it's very, as a concept, it's very important. The idea is going forward is automating some of the mundane things that we do day to day. There are, we may have done, as we say, like operate a plant. There are certain things that have been done, and it's repeated things. So AI is nothing more than just having the machine really do that for you, based on some knowledge. The knowledge normally is in someone's head. So, translating that into a machine based on rules, based on fundamental principles, and based on, models that could be data-driven. That's where machine learning and so on come in. You utilize all that. So it's really multiple pieces. It's not just one single platform that you take and say, hey, you just stick this in there. It's not plug and play. You need to be able to translate this and provide the augmented intelligence, which would otherwise take one or a team of people sitting there scratching their heads and kind of doing things that they've already done before, and they know, okay, if this happens, this is what I need to do. Those are things that can be very easily it's clearly in the realm of artificial intelligence, as people call it, to be able to, so that then your brains are used for higher purpose, higher value added things. And some of these things are really taken care of you, for you. So it's really not a single platform. There are a lot of open source technologies. There are platforms available which you can, leverage off. But it's not a single platform that really is the panacea for making this happen.
Wonderful. Unfortunately, that is all we have time for today in the question and answer session. But thank you so much, Pratap, for taking the time to answer our audience's questions. And thank you so much to all of you for sending in your really pertinent, really interesting questions. We've had a huge amount of interest. We absolutely love that. It's what we're all about. You really put us and Pratap on the spot, but we couldn't have enjoyed it more. So thank you very much. Please do feel free to keep sending them in throughout the end of the session. As we've said, anything that we did not get round to asking Pratap today, we will be sending the questions to him for his feedback, and we will be sending it to you all by email over the next couple of weeks. So keep your eyes peeled in your inbox for that. So you've asked us questions, now it's your turn. It's time for the second of our polls for this session. Please do take a moment to vote now. So we talked a lot about business value, and we talked a lot about digitalization as a business enabler. We want to know, how do you measure the ROI of your technology solutions partner? Now, there are a number of options there. Perhaps you have metrics, perhaps it's cost efficiency, the best price in the market. Perhaps it's increased speed of operations, how quickly it can really streamline your business processes. Or perhaps you have no metric system, perhaps this is something you're working on. Do take a minute to vote. Your feedback's really important to us. We love to hear from you. A few more seconds to vote, then we'll be sharing the results. Thank you so much for casting your votes, everybody. And there's some really interesting results here. It's quite a split. It's quite a split audience. 52%, so just over half of you, are going for cost efficiency. So you're looking at the market and you're going for the most efficient solution out there in terms of cost, which is interesting. Not very far behind is 32% of you who want your solution provider to increase the speed of your operations. 12% of you have no metric system, so perhaps it's word of mouth, perhaps it's talking to your colleagues, or perhaps it's going for the technology solutions provider that you've heard a great interview with. And 4% of you have metrics, that's internal metrics to measure value, internal quantitative metrics to determine and measure the ROI of your technology solutions provider. Thank you very much for casting your votes. It's really interesting to find out your thoughts and your insights in the market, who you're choosing and why. Before we go, I would like to take the chance to draw your attention to the exciting upcoming events that we have in our digital calendar. So on the 6th of August, we are bringing you first-hand perspectives from international business leaders who are coming together to define and debate what the new normal means for a changing downstream industry. So what will the shape of post-COVID-19 recovery look like? How can you adapt to keep your business models profitable in a time of shifting supply and demand? And how do you normalize the new normal for your workforce and for your customers? So find out what they think and ask them your questions here with us on the 6th of August. And for any previous content that you may have missed or that you want to revisit, please do visit our digital series page. The link is on your screens now, so please do check it out. There's plenty of fantastic content there. We've been hard at work to make sure that we bring you the most cutting edge insights. We look forward to seeing you at the next session. Thank you very, very much for all joining us. You've been a great audience. And in the meantime, take care, stay safe, and have a lovely day. Bye-bye.